Welcome to Talking with Tech Tony. I'm your host, Tony. And today I am joined by Josh Cadillac, who is a nationwide real estate speaker and instructor and an actual licensed realtor in the state of Florida, if that's correct,
Yes,
right,
sir.
Josh?
Yes, sir.
And welcome, Josh. Just real quickly, I've got here your bio and how I met you for the audience to know. I met Josh a few years ago at a conference called Rapid, RAPPDD, right? Or
I can never remember whether it's two P's or two D's. I can never remember either.
Exactly. But basically what it is it's an opportunity for nationwide speakers to come together, as well as trainers at associations and of course real estate association staff to come together to meet and greet and network with each other, to share ideas, to meet these speakers and trainers, to get ideas, to be able to bring that to the realtor audience. So a few years ago, I met Josh at Rapid. And this year, because of after COVID, I got to see Josh again, and sitting down with Josh just in between everything that was going on at this conference, trying to better myself as a trainer myself. Josh and I got into a topic that really hit home to me about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs. Now, depending on who you talk to, some people like to think that they are simplifying it. There's, ways of explaining it, but things seem to still not be answered the way they are. But in talking with Josh, what intrigued me with Josh was how simple he made it. The big thing that I've seen here at Orange County Realtors, when we have somebody that talks about blockchain, they get into the real technical aspects, whereby it loses half the audience.
Yep.
And when we talk about these types of things, I don't want to lose anybody. We want to bring it down into really simplified layman's terms for people to understand. We're going to tackle this in kind of basically 3 segments. And then time permitting, we're going to get Josh's opinion because of Josh's experience, because Josh, you've done deals in cryptocurrency and NFTs, correct?
We have an entire division of our company that's dedicated to crypto transactions. So yes.
Excellent. So Josh, can you tell the audience a little about who you are and what you do in your experience and stuff like that?
All right. So I'm the guy that came into real estate and knew right away that I didn't know nearly enough to take and feel comfortable handling customers' transactions. I mean, I know there's this whole fake it till you make it kind of concept of real estate. So in the first 2 years I was in the business, I went out and got every real estate certification and designation I could find. And I kind of came to the conclusion that a lot of the stuff that I was getting was a lot of fluff and not a lot of meat. And I knew from my own business that to go to those classes, I had to take time away from money-making activities to actually physically be there. I was investing in my business to be there, but I didn't feel like I was getting a very good return on investment. And my heart and my soul, I'm an investor. So for me, it's all about best allocations of, scarce resources, time being one of them. So in my travels, I wound up at Miami Association of Realtors, which is the one that I'm a member of. And they said to me, hey, you come to so many classes, you should write a class. You write a class, we'll put it on. So I did. I wrote a class. And they completely ghosted me, and I didn't hear from them for a while. And so I wound up having to put the class on the complete opposite end of my state. Pensacola contacted me and said, could you give us this class? So I went up there, and they liked it so much that within short order, the demand for this class just grew and grew and grew to the place where I was doing it all over my state. And I wrote that thinking, that's the last one I'm going to ever write. I never have to write another class again. It's my magnum opus, done. I don't like writing. I don't like writing classes, finished. 30 classes plus now that I've gotten approved in my state for continuing education later. It just seems to be a job that I'm doing a lot because, as it turns out, there's a lot to know about real estate, and to really get down into the down and dirty of what the day-to-day operation. I mean, if I'm going to explain to you about negotiation, I could give you a high-level discussion about negotiation and what should kind of hopefully work, or I could tell you how I got the deal closed with this guy over here who thought he was a bit of a wise guy, and I had to kind of put him on his heels real quick. Otherwise, I had no shot, and how to earn your seat at the table and all the real stuff. So I think if I was going to try to define what I try to do is I try to give people good return on their investment for their time with me, make it simple, make it real, and just, most people describe it as a fire hose. I'm going to give you so much that you're going to walk away with something because we're putting a lot of stuff out there. And I think that's what's needed because there's just so much to really have your head around.
Well, which is amazing. I've been working with real estate agents here at the association now for close to 20 years, and I'm still amazed, even just on this end of the table of just a majority of agents just being lost,
Sure.
just not sure, and yet they're still trying to again trying to drink out of the fire hose, and some of them are
Yeah.
able to do it, some of them aren't, and some of them make it look simple, and still there are lots of things that fall through the cracks. So
Sure.
it sounds like you've got a really good take on this kind of thing.
Well, I mean,
So
what it really boils down to, if I'm going to break it down, Tony, is the one thing that's really missing in real estate in general is product knowledge. Agents don't know and understand the thing they're trying to sell in real estate. And they think they do. Like when you ask them, they try to give you an answer, but when you ask them why that answer is true, oh, real estate's good. Oh, why? And you get like silence, you get crickets, or you get Porky Pig. Right? I mean, they don't know where to go to. And the reason why is nobody really talks about it. And that's really where the dialogue changes in a class that I do. I mean, I had a class today that I did before I came on with you today, was on investing in real estate. We spent the first 45 minutes of the class just talking about the inflationary market now and how to approach the inflationary market to our customers. Why is it a good time to be getting long in real estate? Why should you be acquiring real estate in this market with interest rates going up and all these? Well, actually, the smart money is all going toward buying real estate right now, even with interest rates. Why is that? And, answering those questions one at a time, because my investor, if I, as the real estate professional, can't answer that question for my investor, they're left having to answer that for themselves. And in what way, shape, or form, in what universe does that make me the real estate professional in the room when I can't answer the questions that should be the most important, most relevant? And honestly, in today's market, the most asked question we get is this a bubble? Or I'm waiting for the bubble to burst so that I can take and buy in. So if you can't answer, is this a bubble and why, or why it isn't? Mm-hmm. You're abdicating the seat at the table that you want to get paid to occupy.
Makes sense. Now, aside from the bubble and aside from investing, let's bring it down here. So, again, I want to thank you for appearing on the show, taking your time out of your busy day. So, in real simple terms, what is blockchain? I know a lot of people have thrown the term around. I know that, you go to the tech conferences, you hear the words on the street, you're starting to see this sort of advertisement of, we've got our blockchain going, we've got this. So what is blockchain essentially?
Okay, so blockchain is a way of keeping track of information in a way that's very difficult to distort or hack. So we'll start with Bitcoin, because that makes the most sense. That's kind of the test case for blockchain implementation of really being effective, because there were blockchains before that, but this was the first real use case that's become popular. So what Bitcoin has done is they have the way I like to imagine it is as a box. We have a box, and in that box, we are going to take and put receipts. And these receipts are simply transactions that have occurred. And the problem that existed with digital money prior to blockchain and Bitcoin was the fact that I could go into the file where my digital money was and hit copy paste, and now I have twice as much digital money. There was no way to keep an individual from duplicating or increasing or creating fraud within the network. What blockchain has done is it has taken and spread out a copy of the ledger being a complete list of all transactions ever done on the blockchain, to thousands of people. So people all over the world have complete copies of this ledger. Anyone who's made their computing power available to the Bitcoin network has every single transaction that has ever been done in the history of Bitcoin. So when we try to understand a blockchain, as I said, I like to think of a box. And let's just imagine it's the very first one in the blockchain. It's the Genesis block. There's been no blocks before this one. So what Bitcoin kind of does is it gets recordings of these transactions. Oh, Josh sent Tony $5. So the ledger agrees that Josh had the $5 to send, and that now the $5 is not in Josh's wallet, it's in Tony's wallet. And that receipt goes in the block. And more and more receipts come in of all the different transactions of people sending stuff back and forth until the point that block is about to be full. And in the case of Bitcoin, that amount is 1 megabyte of data. When we reach 1 megabyte of data, the last thing that block does before closing the lid is it basically totals up everything that's in the block and creates a receipt that says, hey, look, this is a total of everything that's in the block. But there's one more step. They take that and they run it through a cryptographic software, which requires computer-wise a whole bunch of mathematical work to take and turn this into a code, into an encoded value. So instead of the receipt with the actual numbers on it, it puts this encoded version of the receipt that represents the total value of the block. That receipt is the last thing on the top, and then they close the lid. But before they do that, they make a copy of the receipt, and that receipt is the first thing they start the next block off with. So that next block starts off referencing back to the original block. That block then gets filled with receipts. They total everything up. They add to the total of everything that's in the blockchain, that original receipt, that cryptographically encoded receipt from the previous block. And now they create a new receipt for that block and moving forward. That's an oversimplification, but it basically explains how the blockchain functions and how each block is referencing all the data that has occurred in the past. And so the reason why it's so secure is because in order to take and undo, to create a fraudulent transaction, all of this complex cryptographic software would have to be undone to allow that fraudulent transaction to occur. And the amount of computing power required to do that is, at a minimum, very onerous, more so than most countries even could bring together on their own. So that hopefully that was a simple enough explanation of that.
Well, yeah, because it's almost like a spreadsheet, isn't it? Correct.
That's another way you could look at it. Absolutely. It's just that the idea of the actual blocks, because it really is blocks of information that are getting filled up and then being that value of what's there is being encoded in such a way that it can be moved on to the next block and so on. So each block references back, and that's what provides the security.
So then, okay, so if this is an electronic or digital ledger, then how does this work when it comes to an actual real estate transaction, right? Because how does that affect a real estate transaction?
So it gets messy.
Like let's start off with you, the homeowner.
Sure.
So who puts your home in the block? Who put, so you're
talking about the NFT side of it. So
no. I'm talking about the blockchain right now. Let's focus on the how does a blockchain affect real estate, or how is it going to affect
there's two ways that we could talk about blockchain affecting real estate. If we're talking about the property's title being in the blockchain, that's one thing. If we're talking about the actual transaction, how crypto deals are getting done right now, with the exchange of cryptocurrency from a buyer to the seller in order to transact the deal. And there's all kinds of messiness that occurs with that. Most of the title underwriters in this country right now will not underwrite a transaction that is transacted in cryptocurrency.
Okay.
It is a huge sticking point.
Okay. So we'll handle that one with the crypto, but let's talk about the blockchain aspect of the actual transaction itself. Like what would be, I guess essentially, say we have the blockchain about Jane Smith's house, 123 Main Street. Right. So then, the blockchain for her home, what would that entail?
So if you're talking about it's nothing more than typically what we're talking about when we're talking about using the blockchain to record title, to take and have a place where that is an immutable place where the ownership of assets is kept. It's not much more complicated than the process that's going on right now. Instead of getting a reference number page and wherever they would record your title, now they're going to be taking and referencing the blockchain as to where that information can be found. the benefit of that is the transparency that exists. Nothing can be made. There can't be a change made to the ownership or the title of a property without it being a completely transparent thing, which should, I mean, the reason why it's a benefit, and honestly, the reason why I think it's going to take a while for this one to come into play, it's a tremendous benefit to the consumer because it reduces the amount of title insurance liability that's being underwritten. The insurance has less risk because there's much less opportunity for there to be clouds on title from all sorts of weird places because everything is being recorded in this transparent, immutable place, the blockchain.
But then who's responsible for recording it? Like, am I the homeowner responsible for now needing to go on into an electronic system to report everything and anything about my own home?
It depends on how far down the rabbit hole we go of moving away from traditional title insurance. Because currently the title insurance company is the one that records the title for the property after closing. Do I think the title company goes away? No, I don't think that they're going to go away anytime soon. Is the amount that we're going to pay for title insurance going to be significantly reduced because the amount of risk that we're asking the title insurance company to accept when they're underwriting, when they're insuring a property, I think that risk is reduced and therefore our title insurance premiums may come down significantly. But I think the responsibility will still lie with the person that facilitates the closing, unless we go to a truly more autonomous version of this, which would be the smart contract version of this, where that is part of the smart contract that was written and the title is immediately recorded in the blockchain as part of that smart contract. And that is very viable to do. When you look at our real estate transactions in general are basically a collection of if-then statements, right? Mm-hmm. If the buyer puts up this deposit money in this period of time, then they have the right to inspect the property. And if they accept the property with the inspections, then, right? And this whole series of if-then statements. And so it's not a far stretch in my mind to see that being something that slowly starts transitioning to smart contracts, because most states that I travel to have some form of a standardized contract that they typically use for residential real estate. And most of them, you go into some sort of software program to take and fill in the blanks. I mean, most contracts are fill in the blank. So if I'm just filling in the blanks, could not a smart contract be created behind the scenes to represent that series of if-then statements? Basically to self-execute. As those thresholds are met, the contract proceeds. Everybody agrees, the contract proceeds. And so I see that being something, Tony, if I'm to be honest with you, that to me actually seems like it might happen sooner than the title thing, because, and this is the reason why, I think both the state gets revenue from recording the title and the title companies get revenue from recording the title. And both of them have enough influence. The state obviously has the ultimate influence, and the title company has enough lobbying influence to take and really slow that process down. Whereas the smart contract thing, I don't think it really hurts anybody. It just makes the process more streamlined for everyone.
Now so we're just talking about one set of ledgers, which is the title, right?
Right.
But when you're hearing things around the real estate technical world, you're hearing lenders are coming up with their blockchain. You're hearing the states are coming up with their blockchain. You're hearing, so you're getting multiple blockchains. Does this mean, number one, who has access to this? Who's in, I should say, let me digress back. You were talking about this one bit of information in a block is now copied to thousands of different servers. Well, where is this one block generated from and who's in charge of it? Right.
I mean, that's kind of the amazing part with what Bitcoin has shown us, is that nobody really needs to be in charge of it. Although I would imagine in the case, if we're talking about the title, the state would be in charge of it. That would be, with Bitcoin, there is no customer service, right? There's no helpline. You are responsible, and that's it. I don't think that with real estate, especially the way that we try to protect consumers with our contracts, all the disclosures, I don't think it's ever going to be that, I don't know what you want to say, wild, wild west, if you will, that Lord of the Flies of it, where, hey, you're responsible, that's it. I think that the state would be the responsible party for the blockchain. I don't think it would be a massively decentralized blockchain like Bitcoin is. It would probably be somewhat decentralized with multiple servers throughout the state to create the redundancy that kind of secures the network. but that would be for each. And this is the cool thing with having 50 states in the United States, right? Each one's going to probably implement this their own way, and we can borrow from each other and figure out what works the best way to do this. I imagine that it'll probably be done parallel with a traditional recording for quite a while until they feel comfortable that it fully picks up the slack of, page number and all the fun stuff that they do with recording nowadays.
Gotcha. So then that leads us into the next. So if title's got one, the state's got one, the banks have one, how are these things where do they need to create an overlap to have everything kind of have a one master title, contracts, repairs and things like this? I mean, is that going to be the next major challenge? Because it sounds like I can just get a group of people together and say, I have a blockchain, put
Pretty
one
much
together and then hope that somebody wants to use it.
Sure.
So
I suppose
how do you do things like that?
I suppose saying you have a blockchain is like saying I have a restaurant. Well, that restaurant might be McDonald's. It also might be, 3-star Michelin chef. There's a wide variety amongst blockchain. And so blockchain is kind of just cool and sexy. It's a term that people like. Like I remember when I started in real estate, everything that I ever did, they were going to give me a free website. Everything gave me a free website. I have more free websites than I know what to do with, right? Because website was the cool, sexy thing 14 years ago. Now it's blockchain. And so, with title, could the title insurance company have their own blockchain to hold, your documents on so that you can access them? When I think of a blockchain, I almost think it's like, an open source cloud storage facility is kind of what it is. So for folks that have used like Box or Dropbox or one of these things where you're pulling the information directly from the server, right? But this is a much more secure thing. That's really the big difference between it, is it this decentralization and the security theoretically. Once again, just because you're saying you have a restaurant doesn't mean when we talk about the gold standard of blockchains, Bitcoin is the one, right? Never been hacked. And it's, doing its thing, running autonomously all this time. Does it have problems? Of course it has problems. 1 megabyte block size, all sorts of issues, right? But for proving over the last X number of years that it's sustainable and it can work and it can be safe, it's crossed a lot of thresholds. Once again, not perfect, but crossed a lot of barriers to entry.
But then also you're talking about, you got ABC title, you got Jack and Jill title, you got Frank and Davis title. So if they all have their individual blockchains, which one is right, which one's wrong?
Well, I would say to you that it's going to be very much like if rather than, and I've gotten this from some title companies where they send me a link to where all my closing documents are located, right? And that link references their cloud. The blockchain would just take the place of their cloud. When it comes to the recording of the title, that would be on the state's blockchain. And so that would be kind of the really important stuff would be on the state level. And then the individual title company would then take and secure your information. So you would have access in this blockchain as opposed to having to have it either in a cloud as a link or a hard copy of the documents. That would be how I see from what I'm hearing, how it would work.
Now, I know that there's some talk where MLSs are thinking about maybe having their own blockchain. So, and again, if we're talking about overlap, is that going to be the major?
Well, I mean,
I should say the major hindrance of creating something that will be able to be overlapped and accessed so that, like, you yourself as a real estate agent won't have to not just belong to an MLS blockchain, but then a title insurance blockchain, plus a contracts blockchain, plus, whatever other blockchain to be able to do your transaction. Because at that point, you're now belonging and spending even more money to access these things, or the homeowner themselves now have, do their taxes pay for it?
I think it's not, cost wise, I think it's very much in keeping with a lot of the things that these companies spend money on already as to how the maintenance of documents, right? I mean, I own an office. I have an office right here that I'm in right now. Part of the rent that I pay is space to take and maintain my documents. as things have become more virtual, that space and the need for that space has transitioned, right? So folks don't keep those files in their, $52 a square foot office space anymore. They have a storage space down in, Kabuki that nobody's ever heard of, and they pay, $8 a foot to have it there, because the need to access that has been almost completely eliminated, unless, you're going to get a review from the state or something like that. And so I think that it's just like anything else, Tony. There's going to be the early adopters that want to do this to show how cool they are. So will there be some MLSs that do it because it's cool? I had somebody that wanted me to write a class on the metaverse in real estate. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool and whatever, but it's never going to be regulated as part of the real estate industry. It's a non-tangible asset. Why would it, where's the crossover?
You've got people right now promoting buy virtual space, I find it funny because, to kind of digress, I was like, an MMO gamer, this one was, World of Warcraft. And that
I was going to say
is a metaverse.
Blizzard has some of your proceeds of labor. Yeah,
exactly. So,
Blizzard.
As much, I don't know what we're looking at other than being in, Ready Player One mode at that point, but
to some extent, that's where they're trying to go. But the safety feature that I feel like exists for real estate agents is the idea that as much, I went to a thing on VR the other day, and they have these VR headsets where you could take and put the VR headset in while you're in the developer unit. And now you can take and change the styles and basically turn it any kind of model that you want and see the real layout as it would be. And to me, like as a developer, as a builder, because I'm also a general contractor, I'm like, well, this is sexy. This is going to keep me from having to take and go finish out a model unit. I can now get that model and get it sold right away, right? But the downside with this whole thing is it's still a tangible asset. So guess what? I can't use a VR headset to sell you, Tony, in California, something that I got here in Florida, because you're not going to spend $2 million to buy that house unless you walk in there and make sure it doesn't smell like cat pee. Because guess what? The VR headset does not communicate the feeling you get, the other senses that are being deprived in that space. And so it's real estate is still safe in all this. It's always going to be when the thing becomes economically feasible for widespread adoption. I don't think that creating a blockchain isn't all that expensive. And when you look at what it costs to have a cloud computing software for your organization, that can be costly, depending on how many users you have and things like this. And so at that point, it maybe does make sense that it's maybe even more economically feasible for, our operation to switch to a blockchain. And that's where information is now. So rather than taking in and giving you one type of link to access the information, I'm giving you now a reference to a blockchain to access the information. I don't know that it's a whole lot different than that.
So are you thinking that the governments have to, or local, state, federal government have to come up with some sort of regulations with these upcoming technologies to make them more viable?
Sure.
So that we're not so much of a Wild West, take it by the seat of my pants and, to approach to it, to make it more secure, to make it more
to take and eliminate, to eliminate the bad actors and their ability to have an adverse effect on the actual consumer. Sure. There is a niceness to it being the wild, wild west, which is that innovation is, doors wide open, figure out a way to do it. And, if it's a little messy, we can sort out, as long as the people are well-intentioned, that works. But unfortunately, anytime you do anything, the bad actors are right there in mass to take advantage of it. Kind of like they did with the Luna thing in Tether. That was just, folks recognized an exploit and they pounded the crap out of the exploit, and a whole lot of people got hurt. Right. So yeah, I think that there's going to be, let's be honest. Do I think that politicians are ever going to avoid an opportunity to take more rules and make their position in the universe more relevant? No, that's job security for them if they pass more regulations. So yeah, I think that they're going to regulate it. The problem that I think that exists right now is they have no idea how to regulate it, because they're confused by this as well. It is a new technology, but realistically, so many of these thresholds necessary for the adoption of virtual money have been crossed. I use Zelle all the time. When was the last time you actually took tangible money out of your tangible pocket and took actual bills and paid somebody? I mean,
Well, I just got back from Italy, so
okay, well, there you go. You were going through the whole exchange process, though. Wouldn't it have been beautiful if this Bitcoin thing or whatever it was, thoroughly implemented worldwide, and you could just simply, oh, hey, yeah, here you go. Here's 15 lira worth.
Right. Well, but that's the thing too. That'll lead us here in just a second. So one last thing about the blockchain, and we'll move over to cryptocurrency and viability and things like that. With blockchain and the future of real estate, do you see that blockchain is going to be something that's going to be immediate right now, or is it going to take some time for proper adoption to, by both consumer and government and of course agent, to make it run smoothly? And where does the agent fit into something like this? I mean, I personally think that agents will always be around. Will they be doing as much as they're doing now if the availability of data that blockchain claims to be, hey, full disclosure about everything about this house, for past transactions to current transactions to every document ever created in regards to this, where does the agent find themselves in helping future consumers, in this case, possibly the millennials, to help them with their transactional process?
Simple answer, man. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. An agent's place is as a market expert. You can take and give people all the data in the universe, but the ability to parse that data and give people a real viable answer, to say to me, hey, what should we be doing in today's market? Should I be staying long in cash? Should I buy a house? Should I rent? What should I do? Well, to have an opinion and have an opinion that's based upon what's going on in the market and what's real. And so that doesn't go away with the dissemination of data, even with Zillow, with all the data that's being pushed out all different ways. The number of people using real estate agents in the last 10 years has gone up, not down. And so I know for me in my state, when I started in 2008, 9, my contract, as is contract was 5 pages. That same contract today is 12 pages to do the exact same job because they keep simplifying it. I asked the guys on the real estate commission, why does it keep getting, well, we're trying to simplify it. Well, how does it keep getting longer then? And so I don't know that the process of doing real estate is getting any easier. And that's kind of the caveat I would have when it comes to blockchain. To me, blockchain is only going to get massive adoption when it really shows that it makes a meaningful difference in how the transaction is done. If it's just simply a different method of storing information, I don't know that my customer is going to care whether or not they get a box link or a Dropbox link or whatever your cloud versus a blockchain link. I don't know that that's going to help them. Now, if there's things about the blockchain that come into be, because again, they're just really starting to work on how to implement this for real estate and what they're going to do to attract people. I mean, I know to me, to take and get rid of my cloud computing software that I have and move all my stuff over the blockchain, to me, that sounds like a pain in the butt. So in order to take and do that, you've got to incentivize me with either price or something about it that's going to take and give me or my customer some advantage that I think is going to take and compensate me for the aggravation. And that's the thing that I don't see the connect with right now with just implementing blockchain wholesale through the real estate transaction from the MLS level or any of these things. The way we're doing it right now, say what you will, it works. And so that's the thing. I mean, where's the real advantage to the consumer? And that's where I think when they answer that question well, that's when we'll see the real wholesale adoption.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I know we can keep going down the rabbit hole on the blockchain. So let's lead into cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency, what is it essentially?
Well, cryptocurrency it depends on what cryptocurrency you're talking about. Each one is kind of doing its own thing to some extent. Many of them are alternatives to money, and they all have their own, what they call tokenomics, or basically their own economic system that they're governed by, whether it's going to be a certain number of coins total, whether there's going to be a certain number of coins with maybe an infinite number of coins, but only a certain amount released in a certain period of time, whatever that's going to be. The one that I always reference most frequently, because it's the one that most likely people will be doing any kind of real estate transactions with, is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is a very, very interesting thing because it is probably the hardest money that we've ever seen in the history of the world. The hardest, and when I talk about the hardness of money, in economic terms, a hard money is a money that it is hard to make more of. Mm-hmm. So gold has been the long-term store of wealth for as long as there's been written human history. And the reason for that is the process of mining gold is so arduous. It's so hard to get gold out of the ground that even if the price of gold was to go to 10 times what it is today, we really couldn't bring more gold out of the ground than we do today. We're basically at peak capacity right now. So this means that the existing supply of gold compared to how much gold is coming in the market is kind of fixed. You know, we have all this gold. I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, as far as gold goes, we basically have all the gold we've ever mined in the history of the world because there's not a whole lot of industrial uses for gold. All this gold that we mine, minus whatever's been lost, like shipwrecks and buried treasure, maybe. But otherwise, it's in jewelry or it's in coins, but we've got it all. We've got all of it. So the supply, the stock is huge. And the flow, the amount coming in, is negligible compared to the existing supply, which means the ability to devalue it by decreasing scarcity is limited. We understand this because we've just seen the exact opposite happen with our US dollar. We had a bunch of dollars, and we kind of had a flow of how much they were printing at a time to expand the supply. And then COVID happened, and they said, hey, look, there's a little overdrive button here on the printing machine. Let's see how that works. And they printed a whole bunch of money. So they increased the flow of money coming in, and that made the money that we were holding less scarce and thus less valuable. And so one of the things that a good money is supposed to do is maintain its value. And the best way to do that is by maintaining its scarcity, by not increasing the supply or not dramatically increasing the supply. And that's what gold has done for us. Bitcoin takes it one step further, and they say, hey, look, there's only going to be ever 21 million. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. That's it. So the value of that Bitcoin is going to be based upon the world's population figuring out who most wants some of those Bitcoins. And so as there's greater adoption, it's not like they're going to take and bring more in. It's not like more people decide they want single family homes, so builders go out and build more homes. No, there's 5 homes and there's 2 billion people, and we all got to figure out what we're going to do with those 5 houses.
Right. But then, you know, I know we moved off the gold standard back in the 60s, you know, because of Nixon, and we're now all based on credit and company worth and this, that, and the other. But what makes Bitcoin or what makes cryptocurrency even valuable, right? Well, I remember Bitcoin almost 12 years ago, and I could go on eBay, buy 100,000 Bitcoin for $1. And now all of a sudden the roles have reversed. One Bitcoin is like, you know, I haven't looked at the stock market, but it was like, you know, $20,000-$30,000. So it's like, you know, but then you hear the experts, Tony. Oh, there's only.
Let me ask you a question right now, because this is an important question. When you talked about that Bitcoin, that 100,000 Bitcoin for $1, did it hurt your feelings just a little bit remembering that?
Oh yeah, it
okay, just want to make sure.
And I had a coworker back then, even, you know, doing, you know, buying food using Bitcoin, and, you know, this, that, and the other, and it was, you know, it was still a hard concept to understand that here's a currency that's not really backed by any country. Sure. It's not, you know, nobody's really, you know, and nobody could say who's regulating it, who's in charge of it, right? Because that's the thing that I think scares me, because, you know, and again, being at this T3 conference, I got 1 million not Bitcoin, but 1 million cryptocurrency, you know, there just for attending. And it was like, well, but its worth is only $20. And you kind of go, all right, so is this a potential volume stock market? I mean, is it like getting stocks? Is it, I mean, so well, I think that's where a lot of people are confused. I mean, with all these cryptocurrencies that are out there, funny enough, the ruble being one of those, like, what determines the value? What determines this stuff?
And, you know, this is a really good question, because the answer is we all do. We all do. It is 100% a market-driven currency. And so I'm the question I could ask is, why is the Mona Lisa valuable?
Because there's only
one of them. We all agree it's a great painting. Like there's consensus. And this is when I talk about the thresholds that Bitcoin had to cross, this idea of consensus, this idea that we say, hey, look, the fact that this thing exists and it does what it does, and that the government can't really come take it from me. They don't necessarily know that I have it. These are properties. Like, best example I could give you is there was somebody that I dated years ago, and her father was an executive in Venezuela. Did well for himself. By the time I met him, he was in his late 70s, had retired. He had a little boat. He had a little condo by the beach. Like he had done everything right, worked for the same country for like 40 years, spoke 3 languages, really great gentleman. And then Chavez. And he now lives in Colombia and barely struggles to survive hand to mouth because all the wealth that he had accumulated was devalued by their monetary policy, by turning the printing presses on. Now, I bring this up, not be talking about the inflation component of that. This is actually to accent one of the benefits of crypto. If he wanted to leave Venezuela when he saw the handwriting on the wall and he wanted to get out with what he'd worked his whole life to achieve, he was limited in how much he could take out. And he was limited if he came to a place like the US, he was limited with how much he could bring in. Whereas if he traded his Venezuelan money for Bitcoin, he could have jumped on a plane, come here and made the change back from his Bitcoin to USD and brought all of his wealth with him. You're in Ukraine. You're trying to get out away from the Russian army. You could take and stack all your Ukrainian money and tape it to your body and try to walk away. But if they stop you, they could take everything you got. Same thing if you have gold. If you remember your seed phrase, nobody can take this from you. The wealth you work for is more in your control than it's ever been. And no government can change the rules, as the US government just recently did, and devalue what you've worked for. Because this is really the thing that hurts my feelings, right? We spend so much time talking about minimum wage and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. Understand, when there's inflation like we had, what the government has actually done has gone back retroactively to work that you've done in the past and lowered your wage that you earned for that work. Because your money that you have is a reflection of work that you've done, right? I exchanged labor in order to get this money. They've actually gone back. Now, you made an agreement with your employer in order, hey, I'll do this much work and you're going to pay me this much money. They've gone back by devaluing the money and retroactively devalued the work you did in the past by devaluing that money at a rate of 8.6%, I think is the most recent number that we're looking at. And so taking that ability out of the hands of government is one of the big attractive features that really has made for the adoption of crypto. And I mean, understand, when it was written, the white paper on Bitcoin was written after the housing crisis and all the bailouts. They're sitting here saying, wait a second, a whole bunch of, I'm paraphrasing the white paper a lot here, but basically, look, a whole bunch of normal people got crushed by this whole thing, and you're bailing out all your buddies on the top. How is it fair that you're changing the rules for them and making everybody else deal with the consequences? We want to take away the ability of the people on top to take and do this to people. And so this is where Bitcoin kind of came from. And that's where that crypto revolution has sort of sprung out of. Those are the ideas that are behind it. And realistically, when you look at the US dollar, I mean, they say it's backed by the military and all this other stuff. Hey, look, it's fallen in value and the military is still standing there. Mm-hmm. We all agree basically that the money is worth less. And so, and that's kind of where we find ourselves.
But then, okay, so now when it comes to the real estate world mm-hmm. and crypto, how does, I mean, and again, based on your experience, how does one purchase property using crypto? How does a lender use that? I mean, is that considered the NFT aspect of owning crypto?
No, NFTs are really more of a replacement for the deed than anything else. And we can kind of touch on that in a second, because NFTs, it's thrown around so much and people just don't know what it is. So, but the purchase of real estate with a mortgage mm-hmm. right now, even we've made a lot of progress with getting lenders to recognize the income people have in a trading account of cryptocurrency as seasoned money. I used to be that they wouldn't even look at that and count it as assets. Now they've moved off that, and we've made progress. But as it stands right now, there are crypto mortgages out there. One company in particular I know of that is making crypto mortgage. It's honestly a super sexy product in my mind. They'll lend you 100%. You post 100% of the purchase price in crypto, they'll lend you 100% of the purchase price in USD, 100% LTV at very good rates.
But if you have the money in crypto to buy the property outright, why is there even a loan?
Oh my gosh, why would you liquidate your crypto and create a taxable event? I mean, my Uncle Sam's a nice guy. I love he looks great in red, white, and blue, but you want to know something? I don't want to send them any more money than I do already.
Well, that's why I wouldn't want a loan. I don't want to pay anybody extra money that I don't have to.
But there's a big, are you kidding? The mortgage interest is tax deductible. You got depreciation on the asset because it's an income producing prop. I mean, there's all kinds of good borrowing money, Tony. I'm telling you, believe me, when I get into the ACE investor stuff, man, it's off the charts how helpful borrowed money is, especially today. Today, I am absolutely borrowing money as fast as I possibly can. 100%. Why wouldn't I? The rate of inflation is 8.6. They're charging me 6. They're losing 2.6% on every dollar they lend me. I know the money's not going to be worth what it's worth today in the future. So I'm going to pay them back with less valuable garbage future money. It's one of the big inflationary, one of the reasons why you want to get long in real estate is because of the benefit of borrowing money today when interest rates are not where they're going to need to be in the double digits right now.
So can you give me an example of one of those crypto loans then? Because
sure.
I don't know if people are doing them around here in California, but
yeah, actually there are, because the company that I'm talking about is of course, as always, Florida and California is where they're licensed in, is a company called Milo, and they're making these loans. As far as crypto loans go, where you're allowed to use your crypto as assets. Yeah, there's most lenders are now allowing that to be counted as assets. As far as ones where they're going to let you they're going to take payment in crypto, I don't know that exists right now. And honestly, is it that big a deal are I going to liquidate to take and pay them? I mean, that's not that big a leap to make. But for me, understanding the investment side of real estate, so much of it is about borrowing money and using borrowed money, that leverage well. And holding the property for 5, 10, 15 years, coming out of that property, 1031 exchanging into a much more expensive property with a much bigger loan, taking the tax benefits of those higher payments, taking the depreciation, that much higher purchase price. All of this offsets and minimizes my taxable consequence. And eventually get to the place, hopefully, if you do it all right and you die the right way before the tax code changes, your kids are left with a property that they're not going to have to pay a major taxable event on. And so versus say let's take a typical transaction. I've got 20% down. I'm financing 80% of it. I'm getting an interest rate of, say, let's throw it out there, 7% right now. Right.
So that's, having the physical dollars to do it. If I'm doing it via crypto, do I have to liquidate or give up 20% or say still do the same 80-20 where, I'm going to put 20% of crypto down to get a better loan? Or
most lenders are going to make you take and liquidate your crypto. I don't know of anybody that's going to let you leave it in crypto as your down payment, because your down payment is really what you're giving to the seller. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be the seller accepting it and the bank being okay with it. And right now, banks, they're not there yet. These folks at Milo, they're making 100% LTV loan based upon you pledging your crypto. They're not making margin calls on the crypto because they're actually, it's a really good loan for them. I mean, they're 200% collateralized. They have 100% of the purchase price in crypto that they're holding just as security. And they've got a first lien position on the property. So they're 200% collateralized, but you never had to sell your crypto. So you still own your crypto and you still own the real estate.
So what happens when they decide to want to liquidate that crypto?
Who's that?
I mean, the banks.
The bank can't liquidate the crypto. They're holding it as an escrow. So you get that crypto. If you're holding crypto like I hold crypto like I'm not going to sell it anytime. Like it's just, I'm holding it. One day it's going to be worth a whole lot, and I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. Well, if it's just going to be sitting there, maybe earning a few percent interest in some DeFi platform, why wouldn't I just take and use it as collateral to go buy a piece of property. Now it's going to be sitting in their escrow account. Who cares? Once I pay the loan off, they give it all back to me. It's mine.
Okay. Okay. So you can't sell what you've got on hold in the escrow account, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's good to know too, because I'm thinking, well, geez, yes, hold my 2 or 3 Bitcoin,
Right.
whole Bitcoin in your escrow account. I'll sell one off as the other 2 go up in value. So if that's not the case, and they hold on to, hey, you promised 3, you gotta give us the full 3.
Well, you don't have control of it. You don't own it. So it's done by a smart contract. You sign and it goes into escrow and it's held. And that's just it.
And the banks are able to actually transfer that. So then how does that happen with say an international client, right?
The same thing. I mean, it does. It's crypto is crypto.
So you said there is no seasoning period. Like right now, if I remember,
I'm saying that they'll allow you to count money that's in a crypto account as seasoned funds. So as long as if you put, liquidated $1 million out of a suitcase in cash and just dumped it in your crypto account in your Coinbase account last week, no, they're not going to count that as seasoned funds. But if they see that you've got $100,000 sitting in your E-Trade account, I'm not your E-Trade account, your Coinbase account, they'll let that, and it's been there for a year. They're going to, of course, they'll count that as seasoned funds now. They were not doing that. More and more lenders are.
Now, real quickly for the audience that may not know what a seasoned fund is, usually international clients who are transferring monies from a different country into this country, the bank's lenders require that the money be what they call seasoned for a particular time period, meaning they want to see that asset stay there to be able to count it towards the loan. Is that correct, Josh?
That's correct. Absolutely.
So the advantage I'm hearing is that, say I have, a cryptocurrency, have had it for maybe a few months. I'm leaving my country of origin to this country. Even though my asset is in crypto, the banks are looking at that as already pre-seasoned funds that they can easily, I'm assuming, transfer if necessary. Is there a transfer lag time like physical currency?
Well, it depends on the cryptocurrency. Different cryptocurrencies have different lag times. So it's just something to be aware of. Like with Bitcoin or Ethereum, gas fees, how much you're spending, all this stuff comes into play of how long it actually takes for the transaction to occur. But what I'm saying is if it's on a major exchange, they are counting that as seasoned funds. Just like if it was on an E-Trade account or something like that, they would count that as, oh yeah, okay, the money's been sitting here. It's not a drug deal that we're looking to launder funds for.
Gotcha. And then lastly, because I know your time is short and I know I want to respect your time, and I can talk to you all day about this.
No, I love this stuff, man.
NFTs. What does NFT stand for?
All right.
What is it?
It stands for non-fungible token, which that doesn't help at all, right? So the easiest way I can explain it to you is this, Tony. I owe you $1 and I got $1 in my right hand and I got $1 in my left hand. Which dollar do you want or do you care? You don't care, right? $1 is $1. That's because dollars are fungible. They're exchangeable. They're the same. It doesn't matter which one you get. They're all worth the same thing. But if it was one house versus another house, you very much care which house you get because houses are non-fungible, right? They're unique. They're not interchangeable. So something that's non-fungible is non-interchangeable. It's unique to itself. A non-fungible token basically is like the deed for your house. The deed for your house says, hey, look, this person owns this unique non-fungible asset right here. The token, though, instead of being a piece of paper that gets recorded, the token is on the blockchain. It exists there, and it says this person has the unique ownership rights to this non-fungible asset. What makes this kind of cool and sexy is Tony decides he's finally going to move to Florida. I've finally talked him into moving to Florida, right? And so he's going to buy my house. I say, hey, you know what? Let's do this the right way. You buy it in crypto, and I'll give you the NFT for my house, and we'll do it at a pool party in the pool of my house at 11:30 at night, just to prove that we don't need a third party to get involved. And we could absolutely do that. We could exchange that token for the cryptocurrency that he sends me. It could be done on a smart contract. I mean, this is eventually where this thing hopefully winds up because it squeezes out a lot of the middlemen and a lot of the costs out of the transaction.
Now, the middlemen being the agents themselves?
No, the agents, it's still a fungible, it's still a tangible asset.
Okay.
somebody physically somebody has to physically call you up or call me up and say, hey, Tony wants to see the house. Can I get in? And we
Okay.
have to take and prepare the actual purchase documents. So is it going to be an agent or is it going to be an attorney that's going to do it? Somebody's got to do it.
So, but even though you and I might be sitting there in the jacuzzi drinking champagne there in Florida and say, hey, I'll sell you my house if you sell me your house, let's do the exchange. We still need kind of a third party mediator to help us transition it correctly.
Well, it's just like anything else. It's who those third parties are. Because the thing is, in real estate, we don't have a third party. We have a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth party, right? When you go to the closing, you could just imagine there's like the silver tray that the buyer brings with this pile of cash on it, right? And they set it down at their end of the table and they start to slide it down. And there's a bunch of people sitting in the seats and the seller's on the other end of the table. And as they slide it down, people each keep taking a little stack off and keep sliding it down. The title company, the mortgage, everybody's taking their little taste, right? The appraiser, everybody's getting fed, right? So if we could take and minimize how much these folks are taken out of the pie along the way, because their job becomes simplified, I think it helps us. I don't see anything that's really going to simplify the job of being a real estate agent. I don't. All the things that they keep coming up with doesn't make it necessarily easy to do our job. It gives us a customer that thinks they know a hell of a lot more than they actually do. That we get all, I saw on Zillow. Well, you know what? I saw on Zillow too. I also watched the Disney Channel when it's all about fiction, right?
True.
And so that's the place that we gotta come at it from.
All right. So last point here, with blockchain, with crypto, with NFTs, what are the big three things that are advantages for the real estate world, real estate agents, community, consumers, that these technologies are going to benefit them?
I think that in general, it's going to give you opportunities to work with more international customers with less headaches. Once we facilitate the transaction more simply, the ability to take and go to a different country and not have to exchange funds or whatever. I go to El Salvador, if I got Bitcoin, I can take and I can buy stuff because it's legal tender there. So that's a very smooth thing. And I think that security will be a big benefit. There's wire fraud is one of the number one ways that people are defrauded now. I think that, wallet to wallet transactions tend to be much more secure on the blockchain. Those are the big ones to me. And then obviously having a currency that once Bitcoin sorts out where its true value needs to be, is going to be a very good hedge against inflation going forward.
Now, will that, with the limited amount of Bitcoin that's out there, will that increase poverty? Because unlike now where everybody can get $1 for their work or, get paid a certain fee for the hours that they're working, if you only have a finite amount of Bitcoin that's worldwide, will that increase the potential of poverty rate?
I don't,
because if you can only have 7 billion Bitcoin and there's only 3 billion people in the world,
there's only 21 million Bitcoin. But the thing is, Bitcoin has a smaller unit called a Satoshi, which is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin, which is significantly smaller than our penny is right now. In order for it to be the same size as our penny, every Bitcoin would have to be going for $1 million. And so what you'll see is as the demand for Bitcoin increases, the value of Bitcoin will increase as well. Will that create poverty? No, the coin itself will be more valuable. And so I might have only, 10 Satoshis, but I can now buy, a lot more with my 10 Satoshis than I could before.
Gotcha. And then what are the maybe 2 or 3 pitfalls of these technologies in the future?
Well, one big one is obviously you're responsible to secure and protect your own money. You have to be your own bank, which means you're responsible for security. I know somebody the other day, they got their phone hacked and they lost a bunch of money that they had on a wallet on their phone. And so there's no customer support. There's no helpline to call. And so our responsibility is going to be much, much greater in making sure that we're aware of that. And, we're going to have to adopt new practices, I would say, to take and just protect our customer and ourselves in these transactions. Those would be the big things, Tony.
Cool. Well, thanks, Josh. Thanks for taking the time and spending time with me today, going over this. I hope the audience really enjoyed today. And I look forward to having you host a class here at Orange County Realtors and hopefully at our sister association that we're helping Rancho Southeast Association of Realtors to go over things like this, plus all your other cool things. Is there a way that somebody can reach out to you if they're ever deciding to move out to Florida?
Sure. I mean, if you want to see what I'm up to, what I'm doing, Close for Life is probably the best way to get me, closeforlife.com. I don't believe in closing transactions. I believe in closing customers for life. Anything short of that, you're not doing your business the right way. You're running your business like an employee and not like the owner of your business. So that's kind of what I teach. I do coaching. I do real estate. I do all of this stuff, but that's probably that or Josh at joshcadillac.com. You get me there. I got a podcast called Know Your Shit podcast. Hey, you know what? It's the one thing we're missing in real estate. Agents don't know what they're talking about. So,
Hey, I'm glad you're bringing it to brass tacks there.
that's what it's all about, man. I don't like to waste people's time if I can help it. Tony, I got to run, buddy. Thank you so much. This was great. It was great seeing you again, my friend.
Thank you very much. And I will talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, everybody. Thank you all very much for attending today. I know that there might have been a little hiccup on the Facebook business page. Hopefully you got my earlier messages about clicking on the link, redirecting you to my Facebook personal page, which is where the video seems to be hosted, but that's okay. I'm going to make sure that the video gets posted, and not only on Facebook, my Facebook business page, which is Tony the Tech Guy on Facebook, but also on my YouTube channel, which is under my name, Tony, Tony Bried is my last name. Hope everybody's having a great and wonderful day, and I will talk to you all very soon. And tune in next month when I have hopefully another exciting, fun guest going over some great tech for you and your industry in the real estate world. Have a great day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.